Welcome back to Living a Good Life, and today I am super excited. We have with us today the Chief of Police for the City of Prescott, and I'm just excited to have you here, learn more about what it is to be a police officer, more importantly, the chief and your roles that you have a whole business and organization to run, and kind of learning about that, sharing that with people, letting people know what's the best part of the job and what's the not so fun part of the job. We all have those in our daily lives, and just kind of get to know a little bit more about the industry of being a police officer and how that kind of fits into all of us living a good life.
Well, thanks for having me.
So Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit, before we dive into being the chief and all that, how does one become chief of police? Is that something you always wanted to be, was in the police force, and how did you get into the industry and then, I guess, progress your way up to being chief?
So when I was born and raised here in Prescott, and I studied music a lot when I was in elementary school and high school, and I went to proud Prescott High School graduate. Go Badgers!
Go Badgers!
And so I went to NAU and started out as a music major, and I wanted to conduct a symphony. Well, I realized about 6 weeks in of music theory that there's a lot of math in music, and I'm not math isn't my strong suit. So I'm like, well, what else can I do? I kind of knew that wasn't going to work out. And I had been an explorer with the Prescott Police Department, which was like a cadet program when I was in high school. And so I started taking criminal justice classes, and I really liked them, and started looking at what opportunities there were within that industry, and started asking around, and some friends that I had gone into law enforcement, and I'm like, well, that looks kind of fun. And just sort of worked at that until I graduated. And when I looked at where I wanted to work in agencies, there was really no choice for me. I always wanted to work at Prescott Police Department. So
was your first job back with Prescott?
No, my first job after I graduated from NAU was working with Bob Bean over at York RV at the time. And he put me in this customer service role, and he's like, well, you went to college, you know what you're doing? I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I started creating, customer service or satisfaction surveys. And I did that for the summer, and then I started the police academy in July of 1998. So yeah, I've been there. I just celebrated 25 years with
25 years.
Prescott PD, and it's been a ride.
So Prescott PD has been your only stop as a police officer.
It's been my only stop.
So you got your training there, you grew up there, got all your experience. Because a lot of times chiefs, I know Prescott Valley has a new chief, and I think he's also a Prescott grad, but
yeah, he is.
He left, and he got all his experience elsewhere and kind of brought experience back. And I know that sometimes that happens with chiefs. So how unusual is it to have a homegrown cadet work their way through and become chief of police?
Yeah, I don't know that it's super usual. They there's pros and cons to doing it, both ways. I'm so blessed. I decided when I knew that being a chief was, something that was a possibility. The only place I ever wanted to do it was Prescott. But, you grew up there, you grew up with these people. So sometimes it's a challenge, because there's hey, I remember you did that 20 years ago. And hey, you remember that time you did that? So it's like a big family, and, growing up together and learning together and growing together is it's fun. Definitely a privilege to lead those folks.
Good. So how big is your organization? How many police officers and personnel?
So we're authorized 87 sworn personnel from myself on down. So we have some vacancies right now. We can talk about that.
Okay.
But 87 sworn personnel, and then we have a tremendous professional staff, from our property and evidence technicians to our records clerks. And then we also have a regional dispatch center. So very few people really know that we have Prescott Regional Communications Center, which is part of the police department, and we dispatch, take 911 calls for 8 police and fire agencies on this half of Yavapai County.
Okay.
So it's a busy place. So we've got, from police officers all the way to emergency telecommunicators who answer 911 calls and dispatch police and fire radio for us. It's a busy operation.
So with that coordination, I know CAFMA does this. They coordinate CAFMA's Central Arizona Fire, and they coordinate with Prescott Fire, so that they can provide better coverage. So if a truck gets moved over here, Prescott might cover part of the CAFM area and vice versa. Do you do the same in the police force? Do you work in collaboration with Prescott Valley or Chino and our sheriff, Yavapai County Sheriff?
We do. So if you think about especially this half of Yavapai County, really our law enforcement agencies we touch. And if you come from, Prescott Valley all the way to Prescott, you go through, Yavapai County, DPS, VA, Tribal, Yavapai College. And so, yeah, it's imperative that we all work together. And we don't work quite the same way as Prescott and CAFMA do with the auto aid, but we do have mutual aid. So anytime, we need help or somebody needs help, it's just a very quick phone call away or sometimes even just a radio call away.
Okay, so give us an example of how you guys might collaborate together, any of those agencies and Prescott PD, on making my life feel like I'm so safe and
so
this is a great place to live.
There are lots of examples. So I can tell you, we had our Whiskey off-road mountain bike race that happens every year. Same thing with our Whiskey Row Marathon. And those kinds of events, especially in the city of Prescott, are really time-consuming and require a lot of staffing. And sometimes we don't always have that. So it was really cool this year to see when I was down there working with my folks that each wave of mountain bikers would get led out by a motorcycle officer, a traffic safety officer, and then would get followed up by another person on a motorcycle. Well, we don't have that many motors right now, so Prescott Valley came in and supported our efforts. So they were actually helping us to coordinate that. And they do that very frequently, whether it's the sheriff's office or DPS. Other examples out here in Prescott Valley are when they have large events like out at the Finley Center. We've had presidential nominees, presidential candidates, even vice president or, the president, acting president at the time come out here. And those one agency in our area simply can't handle those events. So we just pitch in and collaborate together and make sure we cover all the bases.
Well, I like to hear that. I like to hear when their communities come together and work together, because we are one place to live.
Absolutely.
The way I look at it, I think if you were to look at your organization, you'd probably say, yep, I have officers that live in Prescott, Prescott Valley, they live everywhere.
Yes.
And just because the agency is in one location doesn't mean it doesn't impact all the communities that surround that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the relationships are so critically important. I mean, you mentioned Chief Tyser out here in Prescott Valley, and we do, from our fire chiefs to our police chiefs and leadership, all the way down to line level, just have really great working relationships and friendships that make those kind of events really, really seamless for people that visit or live here.
And it's actually essential that we have that collaboration and cooperation and not competition. So often in certain industries, you feel like there's a competition between Prescott and Prescott Valley or Chino, and really we're stronger when we put that competition aside and
Absolutely.
We're just taking care of the people.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the way we all look at it. It's just how can we help each other. And we meet frequently together as leaders and look at ways that we can do things better. In Prescott, we work very closely with the fire department, and it's really interesting. When you look across the country, a lot of entities, a lot of cities, their police and their fire departments just don't get along. And I'm like, I can't imagine working or living in an environment like that. We are just so close all around, just to serve our communities and to support one another.
It's like almost how can you not get along?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one job, it's public safety.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's police driven and sometimes it's fire driven or ambulance, but at the end of the day, it's all public safety.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the job. So what's the one thing that's like you dread as either a police officer or, and I might want to poke you a little bit on, being the chief, like what's one of those duties that you have to do that's...
Okay, so there are a couple different things. The thing I dread the most, what keeps me up at night in terms of what I worry about is community safety and officer safety, right? I'm really concerned about the drug crisis that we're facing as a nation, as a community. I'm worried about our kids. I'm worried about just the tremendous amounts of drugs that we're seeing in this country, illegal drugs that are killing people every day. That concerns me. The other thing is, safety, and we're looking all the time at how we can enhance safety in our schools and in public places, so those kinds of things. So those kind of operational things that I worry about for our community. What I worry about as a police chief is one of my officers getting hurt and having to, make those split-second decisions that they so often have to make that so many people don't understand, right? They look at things in hindsight and they don't understand the pressure that is placed on these men and women to make these split-second decisions about their safety or the safety of the community. So that concerns me for them. What's the part of my job I don't like the most? Well, let's see, how should I say this? I'm not politically minded. I mean, I'm one of those people where if you have a question, I'll answer the question. And so I'm getting better at answering in a more structured way than just letting my brain think before my mouth opens.
Yeah,
So,
I always say, because I have to do the same thing. 'Cause respond, don't react.
yes, I
How do
actually
you
have
respond?
a sticky note on my computer that says exactly that, literally.
Yeah.
So that's
It's so true though,
Yeah.
because somebody says something and you just immediately in your mind is a reaction to it.
yes,
And sometimes it's the right one, but
but you can't
it's
say
not
it like that.
Exactly. It's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it.
Yes.
I've been told that a lot. Brad, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And you have to give space for others to be in that conversation and that
Yes.
response.
Yeah, and I have some good friends who recognize I don't have a good poker face. I'm not good at like practical jokes because I do something, like set somebody up in their office or do something and I just sit there and wait and giggle and they're like, "What'd you do?" I'm like, "Nothing." I don't have a good poker face. And when I'm in those situations where, my gut is like, "Well, that's crazy. That's a crazy idea," or whatever. Yeah. They're like, "Your face says it. Your mouth isn't saying it, but your face is saying it." And so I have a good friend that sometimes he's like, "Fix your face." Because your face is saying exactly what your mouth isn't. So we all have to have friends like that.
Yep. I call that Michelle.
Yes.
I say, "You're a face talker." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I can tell exactly what your face says it all. You don't even need to say any words to that."
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what you don't like. And before we move on to what you like, I want to touch on something there because you talked about the drugs. And I think a lot of people, they're maybe naive to the drugs that are in our community because we think, hey, we live in Prescott, we live in Prescott Valley, we live in Chino, Yavapai County. This is a beautiful place to live, and all that's true. And it's safe, and our crime is low. I don't think people realize how much drugs are in our area. So you want to touch on that, like how prevalent is it and how big of a concern is it for us as a community?
Yeah. So, the thing that really concerns me is we're doing a good job, I think, as a profession and, getting the word out about things like fentanyl and carfentanil and xylazine, all these drugs, these synthetic drugs that are coming into our communities. What we're not doing a good job about, I think, is really educating people about how much of it there is. We're talking tons that are seized at the border. And if you think about the things that we seize, the things that we catch, we have to think about the things that we don't. And what is concerning, we work very closely with the DEA, we work closely with DPS and those agencies. And the DEA has estimated as recently as a couple weeks ago, and we had a briefing from them, that 6 out of every 10 of those pills that are coming across or that are entering in our community are lethal to people.
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. And
so if you get one of those 6, one dose
it could
be it.
Could absolutely, yes.
Wow.
And so it frightens me. The drugs that we're seeing, when I first started, it was meth, and meth was scary. Meth was really scary, and we're starting to see a resurgence of meth as well. But it wasn't killing people like we've seen heroin and fentanyl and these things.
Fentanyl's really scary. You see the billboards, you see all the TV commercials trying to get the news out, but the way they disguise it.
Yes.
I mean, they've really made an industry out of mass production of things that look safe and look like other pills people might take.
Correct.
And yet it's deadly.
It's deadly, and that's what concerns me, for our kids especially. I mean, our kids especially, it terrifies me. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and I'm always telling her, just, please make good choices. I know, Mom. But it's an epidemic, and it's something we need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears.
Okay.
Best part of the job for you personally that you'll just enjoy the most?
Oh my gosh. I love watching somebody come from wanting to enter the job to being a solo police officer and watching their growth and development and how much they love and enjoy the job. I love doing that. I love working. I have fantastic command staffs, like I said, supported by our professional staff, to equip our guys with really good equipment and watching the technology evolve. And it is mind-blowing, the technology enhancements and improvements that we have in public safety today that I never in a million years would have thought we would be using when I started 25 plus years ago, and how we use that to make them safer and how we use it to make our community safer. Great example of that is drones. We've been using drones for a while now, and just looking at the advancements of drones and how we can utilize drones to prevent officers or firefighters from having to go into a dangerous situation. So we can use a drone to, hover over a building to tell our firefighters, oh, here's a hot spot, here's where you need to be careful of. Or we can use a drone to communicate with somebody who might be barricaded in a house and really prevent officer encounters with suspects and keep everybody safer. So watching that evolve and watching, like I said, just the development of people. I love people. I love our officers. They're seemingly getting younger by the day, although I know we can only hire them at a certain age, but I'm like, oh,
it's amazing how that happens.
It's amazing.
In life, right? They're getting younger.
They're getting younger. So that's the best part, is just working with them and watching them.
Well, I get to see some of your cadets every year because you bring them out to the Hot Shot event to remember our hot shots that lost their lives, again, keeping us safe. And so it's really great to see those young men and women, because they come out, they do such a great job at that event, and they're eager, they're charged, and they just do what you ask them to do. And they're just like, whew.
And they're so enthusiastic, and that's encouraging. When you see so many people and see so many negative things in the world, it's encouraging to see that there are people that still are interested in serving and doing so with such enthusiasm.
With all the backlash over the last, I don't know, couple years for sure, but maybe 5 or more about police and just your industry and what you go through. And of course, the news and the media only shows the worst of the worst,
right,
and the one outlier. But it's nice to see young men and women still want to be in the industry and still want to help keep us safe.
Absolutely.
Because it's got a lot of bad scars over the years, just with the social media and the news outlets.
Yeah, it's not doing us any favors, I'll tell you that.
Have you seen a decline in Prescott of people wanting to be in the industry because of that negative backlash?
We have. It's been a rough couple years with recruiting and just trying to keep pace with the retirements or people choosing to go into other professions, and maintaining the integrity and character of the people that we're recruiting to wear this uniform and do this job. So, but they're there, and we have 6 awesome recruits in the police academy right now. They're going to be graduating in just a couple of weeks, the first part of December, and they're out there, and we're searching hard to find them. So
good for you. So what's the most challenging part of your industry? You're kind of touching on it, finding recruits, but what's once you find them, are there still challenges out there, or what are some of the challenges you face in your industry in maintaining and keeping a good force in place to keep the community safe? Well,
the first thing is recruiting, and the thing that I think is really integral for people to understand is that you can't just take somebody off the street and say, now you're a police officer.
I can't be a police officer tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, but in a year.
In a year.
And if we invest about $100,000 into you, you could be a police officer. It's really important that we retain the people that we have and encourage them to continue to do the job. So by equipping them well and making sure that we're staying on top of benefits and pay and all those kinds of things. And, while we continue to support those people, we still need to go out and find the ones that are going to, serve us well into the future. So that's a real big challenge. The other thing is when we talk about cities like Prescott Valley, we're funded completely through our general fund at the city of Prescott. And what that means is that we're incumbent upon sales tax. So kind of riding those waves of the economy and trying to forecast where we need to be and how we can get there in partnership with our, elected and appointed officials who craft policy and guide policy for our cities and for our communities is really a challenge when you're not sure of what that funding source is going to be and how you're going to be able to maintain those service levels.
Okay. So sales tax driven, so you're very tied to the economy and
Yes.
those items that generate sales tax.
Yes.
So tourism is a big thing in Prescott.
Tourism is a big thing in
Prescott's done a really good job with it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful setting
Yeah, it is.
for tourism. And you're surrounded by the National Forest. You got the Whiskey 100, which helps. You got Whiskey Row Marathon. So decades and decades of developing that.
Yes.
So it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
The wheels of motion of some of the opportunities you have today were put in place
Yeah.
decades ago.
Yeah. I mean, think about the rodeo and the Frontier Days parade and the courthouse lighting and Acker. Yeah. So all those things take time and they take resources too. So it's a balance.
Yeah. Okay. So biggest challenge is recruiting. So tell me how you, like, if you can have 87 commissioned officers, including yourself, and you always got this recruitment going on. You got 6 that are going to graduate. I saw a bunch this summer at the Hot Shot event. How many people are leaving every year?
So, between retirements and, we're seeing the demand for police officers and firefighters across the country is huge. And so the opportunities are there. So, the numbers vary from year to year, but usually we 5 to 10 either retire or go on to different careers or go to other agencies across the state or across the country. I mean, you could really throw a dart at a map right now in this country and go be a police officer anywhere you wanted to be.
So you're in high demand.
Very high demand. So yeah, just making sure that, I call it the bench strength, right? Bench strength. You want to make sure that you have the capacity. So if somebody does retire, you're not holding that spot for a year while you're waiting to train somebody up. And having the ability to do that is really where we're building to right now.
Are there good growth opportunities? So if you have a young cadet, so you've managed your whole career here, 25 years, Prescott PD, you grew up through the ranks, and now you're the chief. Is there that much opportunity for other cadets that are coming in today, or is your industry an industry where they're going to get their experience here and then they're going to look to another community so they can advance and kind of move up the ladder?
No, the cool thing about any of these communities around here is really there are those opportunities, and I don't think very many people recognize that. Like if you want to be an undercover drug detective, you could do that. If you want to be a bicycle officer, you can do that. You want to work in a school, or if you want to be a detective, all those opportunities are certainly there. Throughout the years, there's opportunities for promotion, there's opportunities for leadership and training. We offer, a great training budget for folks to develop, and I think that's important too for them, right? They need to feel fulfilled professionally, but also personally. So, there's tons of cool things that they can do and different ways that they can serve.
So because we're a small community, it's not limited. So a lot of times businesses are like, well, we're a small community, there's only so much upward growth, and people think they have to move to a big city for that opportunity, but you're saying not.
I mean, it's not unlimited, but there's there are wonderful opportunities. We have a SWAT team. We have people that are trained specifically to do explosive breaches. We've got crisis negotiators and emergency, like dispatchers who go out. They're tactical dispatchers who go out with our SWAT team to manage those types of incidents. Crime scene investigators, all those kinds of things. We've got our detectives are specialized in different areas to deal with everything from sexual assault cases to homicides, and they get trained in everything from how to retrieve data from a cell phone to how to analyze blood spatter at a crime scene. So you name it.
You got it all. Everything we see
a
on
lot of
CSI,
opportunity.
it's here
Almost
somewhere.
everything, except for those like cool, clear like computer screens where they can like swipe.
You don't have that?
No.
Prescott PD?
No, maybe I'll ask for it next year.
Is that in your budget?
In the budget, a big clear screen thing to find out what it's called.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what's we talked about some of your challenges. The average police officer, what are some of their biggest challenges?
You know,
People
I think,
moving up through the ranks.
well, staffing right now is our big thing. Just getting the capacity there so that those opportunities are opened up. Right now, unfortunately, some of those positions we haven't been able to fill because our primary response right now is to be able to respond to 911 calls and those calls that patrol would respond to. You know, but the city, I mean, I can speak just for the city of Prescott, what we're doing right now, but, you know, there are tremendous opportunities for tuition reimbursement. So if they want to go back to school and get their degrees, they offer that opportunity. We offer free health insurance for family, employee and family. That's a new benefit this year. So
Very nice.
yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff going on. We just gotta get to where we need to be so we can start launching some of these special opportunities for people.
Well, let's talk about the other police officers, the four-legged ones. How many dogs do you have, and like what are their different roles that they perform for the Prescott
So
PD?
we have 3 canines that serve our community right now. 2 are drug-sniffing dogs, Bonney and Cooper, and they are the floppy-eared labs. They are like the ambassadors of our police department. We don't have any, they're called patrol dogs, the ones that are trained to apprehend suspects. We don't have any of those at the Prescott Police Department.
Like the German Shepherds and the
German
Malinois type
yes,
that are
the
just
Malinois.
like, they look at you like...
Yeah, we don't have those. We find we don't use those quite as much. So, but there's resources around if we need one. We can borrow one. Tribe has a bomb sniffing dog, so we can use that dog if we need to, and we have, and that's again why those partnerships are so important. And then so we've got 2 of those dogs, and we also have a facility dog. Her name is Eden, and she's a golden doodle, and she serves victims of crime primarily. So she will sit in an interview with a victim while they're being interviewed by detectives, or she goes to court with victims so that she can help them testify and help bring the suspects to those cases to a successful conclusion.
So is she there to like comfort them and kind of bring
she is
a little bit of a distraction, but a comforting distraction?
She is trained, so our drug dogs are trained to detect drug odors. Eden is trained to detect cortisol levels, so the stress hormone that we put off when we're under stress. She can detect that, and she reacts to people by doing any number of behaviors. She can, put a paw, I call it a hand, a paw on you, or she can lay across their lap like a weighted blanket. She can hug people. When she goes into court, we're not supposed to let the jury know that there's a dog there. We don't want to prejudice the jury, so she just usually sits at the feet of the victim. The jury doesn't even know that she's there, and the victim she lays on top of their feet, and she just hangs out and is that reassuring presence, particularly for children. She does a lot of work. I think she's scheduled for 8 trials with the county attorney's office for children who are victims of crime.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
I know.
I mean, you see the drug sniffing, the bomb sniffing, the ones that chase down the bad guys.
Yep.
But emotional support and compassion.
Yep.
How cool.
Yeah.
And what was her name?
Eden.
Eden.
So she was named, she was a gift from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. And we were looking for one. We were looking for a facility dog. Our victim advocates had been interested in working with a dog. And so we were going to build it into our budget at some point, but it's kind of one of those things. It's low-hanging fruit when you're developing budget. It's like, oh, where can I cut? Oh, we don't have this yet, so let's put this off another year. So a couple years ago, we got a call from DPS, and they said, hey, we have 2 puppies. They're 8 weeks old, and we were going to put them into our facility dog program, but we don't have the capacity for them. They're already paid for. We would like to give one or both of them to you. And I was like, well, okay. Yeah. And so I got to pick. I got the first pick, and I picked Eden. And so I said, well, that's kind of an interesting name. Like, maybe we can rename her. But I learned she was named for Trooper Tyler Edenhofer, who is a DPS trooper who was killed on the line of duty. And I was like, well, she's going to stay Eden. And I actually had the opportunity to meet Tyler's mom several months after we acquired Eden and explain to her what kind of work Eden's doing on behalf of her son. And that was really special.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that makes it.
So we have an Eden. Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. I see you have your pink on.
I do. Guess what? I brought you a gift. Hang on. Right there. I bought it for you. It's a pink patch.
Oh, thank you.
It's hot because it was
Appreciate it.
sitting under my leg. But,
Well, the room's cold, so that's good. We got a little warmth coming in. Thank you.
but yeah, October is our pink patch month, and this is the 6th year that we've done pink patch projects. So that's the 6th edition. They're different every single year.
Very cool.
And so we sell those patches, and we do different fundraisers throughout the month of October to raise money for the breast care center at Dignity Health.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you do something in November?
November?
Do you let all your police officers grow mustaches?
We used to do No Shave November, and it was a big thing. But then they came to me and said, "Hey, can we have beards all year long?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but then that takes out No Shave November." So, yes, we do some donations during the month of November as well, but they get to have beards year round. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
yeah.
I want to touch on it just because when I first met you, you were not the chief.
Right.
And I thought Prescott did a very good job with the succession. The chief retiring and then bringing you in and that whole process. Talk a little bit about how Prescott sets up succession planning.
So it's a very intentional process, but it's also really organic. The way that our command structure is set up is, progressive experience, progressive levels of supervision, and progressive levels of responsibility. So you go from being a patrol officer to maybe being a field training officer to being a supervisor, a street sergeant where you supervise a squad, and then maybe, go to a specialty unit where you have a little bit more responsibility with some budget, like traffic safety, for example, or community services where they're managing their own budget within our police department budget and getting some more experience. And then the next step is lieutenant, and they manage bureaus. And really it's about kind of distilling that knowledge and experience down. And one of the things I could say, especially about being the chief, is you don't know what it feels like or what it's like to be the chief until you're the chief. It was really good being in, the deputy chief's role. I served under several different chiefs as the deputy chief, and watching how they led, watching how they managed, and preparing, because really, after lieutenant comes a deputy chief. Really, the deputy chief is the one that kind of is the operational side of what we do, whereas I kind of set the vision and craft the direction, and then the deputy chief makes it all happen. Okay. So, getting that experience, but more than experience, it's really about thought process and how you see things on just a much broader scale, thinking about, okay, if I make this decision, who is it going to impact? What are the unintended consequences? What's our future going to look like with this policy or this change? And carrying out the vision. Like I said, our elected, councils are the ones that set the policy. And so if they say, this is what our policy is going to be, then it's my job to create that opportunity, make that a reality at the police department. So just about learning and growing into those positions so that when those opportunities arise, that our people are ready for them.
I heard in there, respond, don't react.
Respond, don't react.
Your role as the chief is to set a responsible vision, but it's slow moving. It's not a reaction. You can't just change tomorrow to be a different police force with a different vision and a different mission.
Right.
So you have to think that through. What are we going to look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Yeah,
and that's again about building that experience base and really having the relationships in place to make those things happen. And we're kind of at I would say a building phase right now, because we haven't grown in many. We've added a few positions to our police department. I think when I first started 25 years ago, we were authorized 78 people. So if you think about that,
78 to 87?
Yeah. Wow. So,
and how big has our community grown?
It's
in that
grown.
Same period of time?
And the other thing that, we really have to think about in our communities is what is our service population? So while our population on paper might be 48,937, our service population that comes into our community every day is closer to 100,000. So we have to look at that and really build our response capabilities off of that so that we have the resources in place when people need us. But again, why the partnerships are so important, why it's important for us to look to the future and build responsibly as we go, so that we're not gobbling up giant chunks of the budget as we do these things, but looking to the future so that we can survive.
So how is 87? How is it determined that 87 is the number?
So every year when we do our budget, we look at what positions are filled and what our capacity for response is, and where we deploy our staff based on calls for service, based on what our needs are. And so 87, if all those positions were full, would give us the opportunity for all of our patrol shifts to be at a certain staffing level, not necessarily where I think they should be, but at a certain staffing level, and then a majority of our specialty positions full. So that's kind of where that is right now. Where I want us to go is having the capacity to have, additional people on our bike squad downtown, patrolling our during special events and during busy times, weekends and holidays, those kinds of things. Being able to permanently assign someone as a recruit training officer to our police academy to mentor our new recruits. Right now we have somebody there who's mentoring our 6 new folks that are in there, but we don't always have the staffing available to afford that. But I think that's really important. I think putting officers in schools in partnership with our school districts and with, to ensure school safety is important. Building out specialty functions to support things like warrant services is important. So that's kind of where I anticipate us building next, building out our traffic safety section. It's interesting to know people say, well, what's the biggest complaint you receive? And Prescott and our community, Yavapai County is so awesome. I very rarely hear anything but positive things about our officers, and I'm so pleased with them, and I just love them so much. But what people complain about most to me is traffic. Traffic. So
just the sheer number,
the
or
number,
like
the
speeding,
volume,
traffic,
speeding,
everything.
Yeah, and they're like, "There's never a police officer when I need him." I'm like, "I know. I want to put them back on their bikes to be able to respond to those things and really, get like I said, moving in the direction that we need to be moving."
I mean, I think I'm just in here processing what you're saying, and you think about 87 police officers. You're a 24/7 operation, so it's not 87 people in the day.
No.
We got to run all night long, every day of the week, and it sounds like your population is 48 to 100,000, and then on a special event, it could be 150 or more.
Yeah.
The rodeo comes into town, the Whiskey 100, you're probably exceeding 100,000.
Right.
That's a really lean organization.
It is, and we've managed that for a really long time, really well. And I think we're just at kind of that precipice where we need to start looking forward and anticipating and get to the next level.
Is the next level really restricted by budget, being able to have the capacity to hire more officers, or is it retention, keeping officers here that might move on because there's better opportunities in another city and another force, or cost of living? I know people talk about that all the time.
It's all of it, and we have we look very frequently for lateral police officers that are already certified in other areas and want to come here, and a lot of times they're very interested in coming to work for. I'll speak for all of the police agencies in this area. They're very interested in coming to work in our area, and then they look at housing and they're like, "Oh man, we can't afford the average home in our areas, $700,000, and while we have very good pay and benefits, that's still not adequate to buy a house in this area." So really have to look at creative solutions for that, and it's a community issue. It's not just a city issue or a police department issue.
Yeah.
It's where are we going to put our nurses? Where are we going to put our teachers? These people that we need so desperately to serve our community, serve our kids, serve our population. So we have to start getting creative and thinking outside the box about how we're going to manage these things.
We got to come together as a community and solve these problems.
Yes.
And it has to be done in a civil discourse.
Absolutely.
I mean, what I hear around those topics you brought up, and housing is one of them, traffic is another. People, social media has made everything so bipolar.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like you're either on my side or you're not, and there's no in between.
Yes.
And then you start reading some of the stuff that's going on, and there's no there's some fact in there, but a lot of time there's not.
Right.
And it just drives people further apart, and we can't have that civil discourse that we used to have.
Yeah.
Because we can solve this.
Yeah.
But we got to come together and work together.
Yep.
And it's going to be somewhere out in the middle is the solution.
Yep.
But if we're all boxed into our corner and nobody wants to come out,
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
difficult.
and you know, it is, social media is such a double-edged sword. You know, we use it so frequently to interact with people and to communicate messages, but
and it's great for that.
It's great for that, but also the anonymity of it, you know, allows people. Just be nice.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Be nice.
be kind, and stop being a weird keyboard warrior and being mean to people, like on the internet with some weird internet name. Stop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I would agree. Good advice. Stop it. As spoken from the chief
There
of
you
police.
go.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great to chat with you and learn a little bit more about your industry and being chief of police, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks. Want to thank all of you for tuning in again to Living a Good Life. This is Brad Fain with Amy Bonney, Chief of Police for the City of Prescott. Thank you so much.